Snow had been falling for 2 hours by the time my husband and I pulled into my parents' driveway, and I remember thinking it looked beautiful, the kind of Christmas Eve you'd see on a card. My daughter Lily was asleep in her car seat, still wearing the little reindeer headband she'd refused to take off since the morning. She was 4. She thought tonight was going to be magic. I should have known something was wrong when I saw all the lights on inside. Through the front window, I could see movement, silhouettes, the warm orange glow of the fireplace. I could hear the faint sound of music even from the driveway. My brother-in-law's truck was parked out front. My aunt's minivan. My cousin's car. Everyone was already there. I grabbed the diaper bag my husband Owen took Lily from her seat without waking her, and I knocked on the door. My mom opened it maybe 6 inches, just enough to look out at me. "Oh," she said. Just that. "Oh, Merry Christmas, Mom." I smiled. I was still smiling. She glanced back into the house, then at me, then at Owen holding Lily. "Sweetheart, this really isn't a good time. We didn't think you were coming." I stared at her. "What? Mom? We talked about this on Sunday." I confirmed it on Sunday. I know, but things got a little reorganized. She lowered her voice like she was telling me something embarrassing. We don't really have the space tonight. Your brother is here with the whole family and there's not enough room at the table, and I didn't want it to be awkward." The cold was coming through my coat. I could feel it. "Mom, it is minus 15 degrees outside and you're telling me there's no room." "I'm sorry, honey." "Maybe Boxing Day, Mom." Owen's voice was flat, controlled. He was still holding our sleeping daughter. We drove 40 minutes. She shook her head with this small, apologetic expression she had, the one I'd seen my whole life, the one that meant the decision has already been made and there's no point arguing. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said. And she closed the door. I stood on that porch for a moment longer than I should have. I could hear the party restarting on the other side of the door. Someone laughed. Glasses clinked. My brother's voice, loud and easy, saying something that made the room respond. Owen put his free hand on my back. "Let's go," he said quietly. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Lily was still asleep. The radio was playing something instrumental and soft, and the snow was still coming down, and I was staring at the road trying to figure out how I felt. Not devastated, not exactly. More like confirmed, like something I'd suspected my whole life had just been handed to me in writing. I was 31 years old, and my mother had just turned me away from her house on Christmas Eve because the table didn't have enough room. But my brother was in there. My brother and his wife and their 3 kids, who nobody had called to check about space, who nobody had quietly redirected to Boxing Day. The house had plenty of room for them. It never didn't have room for them. My brother Gavin was 4 years older than me and had lived inside a golden light my entire life. He dropped out of his business degree after 2 years, and my parents had paid off his student debt without a word. When he and his wife bought their house in Oakville, my parents gave them $40,000 for the down payment. When his first business failed, my dad quietly absorbed the loss. When his second business looked shaky, my parents started hosting Sunday dinners that just happened to end with my dad sliding an envelope across the table. I had a decent job. I'd paid my own way through school. Owen and I had saved for years for our townhouse, scraped every dollar ourselves, turned down nothing. We were fine. We didn't need help. But I noticed every single time. Owen pulled into a Tim Hortons parking lot because Lily had started to stir and I needed a minute. He went inside to get us both a coffee without me asking. I sat in the passenger seat and looked at my phone, unsure who I was even going to call. Then it rang. The name on the screen was Gran. My grandmother, my dad's mother, lived in the same house in Burlington she'd had for 40 years. She was 78, sharp as a blade, and the only person in my family who'd ever said my name like it meant something. She called every Sunday. She remembered the name of every person I'd ever mentioned to her. She still made her own bread. "Hello, Meredith." Her voice was tight. "Where are you right now?" "Parking lot." I hesitated. "We were just at Mom and Dad's. They said there wasn't room." A long pause. Then, "Get in the car and come here. Right now. Gran, it's late and Lily is Meredith. She said my name the way she did when she was absolutely serious. I know what happened tonight. Come here. Owen was walking back from the Tim Hortons entrance, 2 cups in his hands, and I rolled down the window. We're going to Grand's, I said. He didn't ask any questions. He got in the car. The drive to Burlington was quiet. Lily had woken up and was watching the snow out the window and asking whether Santa could still find us if we weren't at home. And Owen told us Santa always knows where you are, and she accepted this and fell back asleep like only a 4-year-old can. I stared at the highway and tried not to think too hard about anything. My grandmother's house was lit up when we arrived, every window warm. The walkway had been shoveled and there was a wreath on the door that had hung there every December since before I was born. I'd always loved that wreath. It was made of dried berries and pine, and she'd woven in a few strands of silver ribbon that were probably from the 90s and slightly faded. But she kept it every year because my grandfather had given it to her the first Christmas they had the house. She opened the door before we even knocked. She looked at me for a moment, then at Owen, then at Lily, awake in his arms, and her face did something complicated. "Come in," she said. "Come in, come in." She'd set the dining room table. Properly set it. Cloth napkins, the good china, candles. There was a pot of soup on the stove and fresh rolls in the oven, and the whole house smelled like butter and cedar. She'd made Lily a little plate of the shortbread she always kept in a tin on the kitchen counter. And when Lily saw it, her face lit up like every Christmas wish had been granted at once. I sat down at the table, and for the first time all evening, I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt something crack open in my chest that I hadn't let myself feel in the parking lot. Gran sat across from me and folded her hands on the table. "Your mother called me earlier this week," she said. "She told me Gavin was bringing the whole family, and it would be crowded, and she thought perhaps you could come another night. She watched me carefully. She asked me not to say anything to you. She said she would handle it." I nodded slowly. She handled it. I'm sorry. And she meant it. In a way, my mother's "I'm sorry, honey" had not meant anything. I told her that was not how we treat family. She didn't listen to me. Owen had taken Lily to the living room where there was a small tree my grandmother kept every year, decorated with ornaments she'd collected since the 1970s. I could hear Lily asking about each one, and Gran scat appearing from somewhere to investigate this small, loud visitor. "Gran," I said, "how long has this been going on?" She looked at me steadily. "Your whole life. Longer, maybe." I didn't say anything. "Your grandfather saw it too. Before he passed, he talked to me about it more than once. About Gavin, about your father's blindness when it came to that boy. We disagreed on what to do about it." She paused. "I thought things would correct themselves, that people would grow up. I waited too long. I thought about 100 small moments. Gavin's hockey equipment my parents drove 3 hours to watch. My track needs that. My dad missed for Gavin's university orientation. The graduation dinner where my mom spent the meal on the phone with Gavin about some crisis that probably wasn't one. The way my name had always been an afterthought, not cruel. Just after. Gran reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "I want to tell you something, and I need you to listen to the whole thing before you say anything." I nodded. "Your grandfather and I set up our estate many years ago. The house, the investments, everything divided. I have been reconsidering the arrangement for some time." She paused. "Tonight settled it for me?" I shook my head. "Gran, please don't do anything on account of Meredith." There was that voice again. "I am not doing anything on account of anything. I am correcting something that should have been corrected long ago. Your grandfather would agree with me." I didn't know what to say. I looked at the tablecloth, at the good china, at the candle she'd lit for a dinner she'd set up in under an hour because we'd had nowhere to go. "You have come here every Sunday for 15 years, she said. "You brought Owen when you were dating. You brought Lily home from the hospital before you brought her anywhere else. Every summer, you come and help me with the garden. Every winter, you make sure the walk is shoveled. You painted that fence in August." She smiled. "You thought I didn't notice. I didn't do it for the I know that. That's exactly why I'm telling you." She squeezed my hand. "Gavin hasn't been here in 4 years. Not once. His wife sent a card last Christmas with a gift card inside." Her voice didn't harden when she said it. She said it simply, as a fact. "I am not angry at him. I just know what I know." We ate dinner. Gran had somehow made enough food for all of us, and Lily charmed her absolutely with an extended monologue about her kindergarten teacher and the injustice of nap time. Owen and Gran talked about hockey, which they both followed with a level of enthusiasm I'd never matched. At some point, Gran brought out the shortbread tin again and we all ate too many and nobody mentioned stopping. I thought the evening was over when we started putting on our coats. "There's one more thing," Gran said. She went to the small writing desk she kept in the corner of the living room, the one she'd had since before my father was born, the dark walnut one with the brass handles. She opened the bottom drawer and took out a leather folder. "I called my lawyer on Thursday," she said. "We have a meeting in January, but she has drafted the changes at my request, and I signed them yesterday. I wanted you to know." She opened the folder and showed me the document. I'm not a lawyer. I didn't understand most of the language. But I understood most of the language. But I understood my name. I looked up at her. "The house will go to you and Owen," she said. "The investment accounts split between you and a trust for Lily's education. Your father's share is unchanged." She said this last part carefully. "I have not punished your father, but Gavin's portion has been redirected." I didn't cry exactly. My eyes went blurry and I pressed my fingers against them and breathed for a moment. When I lowered my hands, Gran was watching me with that steady expression she had. "I don't know what to say," I told her. "You don't have to say anything." She closed the folder and put it back in the drawer. "Just keep coming on Sundays." Lily came running from the living room at that moment with one of the ornaments from the tree, a small wooden cardinal that had been there since before I was born, held out in her hands. "Gran, can I hold this one? It's the prettiest one." Gran looked at her. "That was your great-grandfather's favorite," she said. "Do you want to know the story?" Lily sat down on the floor right there, ready to listen. Gran lowered herself into the armchair beside the tree. Owen leaned against the doorframe with his arms crossed and this look on his face that I loved, the one that meant, "This is the important part." I sat on the floor next to my daughter. The story Gran told was about the first Christmas she and my grandfather had the house. They hadn't had much money. The tree was small, and they'd made most of the ornaments themselves, and my grandfather had found the little carved cardinal at a shop on James Street in Hamilton, and it was the only thing on that tree they'd bought, and he'd hung it himself in the exact center. Every year after, no matter how the tree grew or how many ornaments accumulated, he put the cardinal in the center. He did it for 42 years. He'd been gone for 6, and the cardinal was still in the center. We drove home later than we meant to. Lily was asleep again. The reindeer headband finally abandoned on the seat beside her. The snow had stopped. The highway was clear and quiet, and the city lights reflected off the white fields in a way that made everything look soft. Owen drove. I looked out the window. "Are you okay?" he asked. I thought about the question honestly. About the door my mother had half closed in my face. About the party that had been going on the other side of it. About the table my grandmother had set in an hour because there was no reason not to. Because of course we were coming. Because we were always coming. Because that had never been in question. "Yeah," I said. "I actually am." And I meant it in a way I hadn't expected to on a Christmas Eve that I thought was going to be the worst kind. The kind that confirms something painful. Instead, it had confirmed something else. Something I'd needed to know for a long time. There are people who see you, who have always seen you, who set the table before you even called to say you're coming because it would never occur to them to do otherwise. I'd known where to find mine my whole life. I'd just forgotten for a moment to look. I keep thinking about that cardinal ornament, the little carved one Gran's had since before my dad was born, sitting in the center of the tree every single year because that's where my grandfather always put it. 42 years! He never forgot, never moved it, never let it get buried under the newer, shinier things. That kind of consistency, that quiet, steady devotion to what matters, I think that's what good character actually looks like. Not grand gestures, just showing up in the same way, for the same reasons, year after year. My grandmother saw something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. She noticed the fence I painted in August. She remembered every Sunday visit, every plant I'd helped her stake in the garden, every time I'd shoveled the walk without being asked. She'd been paying attention when I wasn't even thinking about being seen. And here's what I've come to understand about that. The things we do when no one's watching, or when we think no one's watching, are the truest version of who we are. Not what we say about ourselves, what we actually do over and over without expectation. I spent a long time feeling confused about why my family worked the way it did. Why Gavin got a down payment and the bailout, and the benefit of every doubt, while I quietly paid my own way and wondered if I was somehow asking for too little. I'd stopped trying to untangle all of it. What I know now is simpler. The patterns we live by catch up with us eventually, not as punishment, not as reward, just as consequence. Gavin's choices, my parents' choices, my choices, they all compounded over years into exactly the outcome you'd expect if you'd been watching honestly. That's not a comforting thought exactly, but it's a clarifying one. What I keep coming back to is this: I didn't show up at runs every Sunday because I wanted something from her. I went because I loved her and because those afternoons mattered to me. There's a kind of intelligence in that. Knowing what's genuinely worth your time and your care, not calculating it, just feeling it clearly and following it. Owen understood that too. He didn't ask questions when I said we were going to Burlington. He just got in the car. Lily will grow up knowing Glan's house. She'll know the cardinal ornament and the story behind it. She'll know that some tables are always set for you, and that those are the ones that matter. I want her to understand, when she's old enough, that a life built on quiet honesty, doing right by the people around you, thinking clearly about what actually counts, and not giving up when things are hard or unfair, tends to build something that lasts. Not because the universe is keeping score, but because that's simply what real things are made of. I left my parents' porch on Christmas Eve feeling like something had been confirmed. I was right, but I had the wrong story. What was confirmed wasn't that I didn't belong. It was that I already knew, without thinking about it, exactly where I did.